We are live. Friends, welcome to PC Journey. I'm your host, DPZ, and with me, I am lucky enough to have the infamous Bro Namath. Thank you, Bro Namath, for joining me today.
Looking forward to it, man. Really excited about this one.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be fun because we're actually gonna be talking about actual cards. We're not talking about investment, nostalgic value, yes, actual value, yes, that's important, but it's going to really boil down to what do these cards mean to you? Why do you have them? How did you come about these cards or comics or whatever it is you're collecting? Where you're going? What's the next grail? Those types of things. Then we're going to have a little fun segment where you're going to show me your best of the best or things that matter to you. So why don't you just kick me off with where'd you come from? How did you get into this space? How long? I mean, you have that typical background story, or is it more geared around, just lately? Or how long have you been in the game?
I think it's kind of similar to a lot of people. You collect it when you were young. For me, at my middle school and elementary school, there was a card shop that was right next to it. I was real big into collecting press pass because I was a huge collegiate college fan for football. So I always wanted to collect press pass, and I was really heavy in Peyton Manning's rookie year, Tom Brady's rookie year, Charles Wood. I was a huge Charles Woodson fan as a kid. And at the same time of those years, I think it was 97, 98, was when Pokemon was coming out in the US. So I was hands deep in both, and I was juggling both. And became huge into Pokemon and love Pokemon, love sports cars. And as the years go on, went to high school and just didn't really collect anymore. And just the stuff was stashed in my parents' basement or garage and just kind of forgot about it. I was also into toys. I remember going around everywhere buying Toy Biz, Marvel Legends. And if you don't know what those are those are the toys that come with the comic book in the background. And they were ahead of its time back then, 98, 2000, 2001. And I was going around everywhere. There was exclusives at KB Toys in the mall. There was exclusives at Blockbuster. So there was these rare variants. And so for me, I've always been a collector and I always wanted to collect things. I never even opened them. So I was buying them, keeping them sealed and collecting them. So that was kind of my kickoff story, my origin story. And then about 2 years before COVID, I had gotten back into collecting cars, and it was Dragon Ball in particular. I had a couple friends I communicated with, and they said, "Hey, look, Pokemon's doing really well again, and all these things." I'm like, man, I just can't fathom spending that amount of money on cards. So I started buying Dragon Ball because in 2018 is when Dragon Ball Super cards started to come out for the first time in English format. So I started buying those because they were pretty cheap and grading them and building this PC. And then my buddy and I were working out, and he was like, "Dude, you got to get into sports cards. You're missing out." And I was like, "All right, well, let me go and put my hand in a sports card." I remember the first car I bought that I was like, "Holy cow, this is a lot of money." I bought a Trae Young Silver PSA 10 for $200, and I bought a Luka Prism Silver PSA 10, and I think it was like $350 or $400. I'm like, "That's a lot of money." And the guy's like, "No, I'm giving you a great deal. And this, that, and the other." I was like, "All right, cool. I'll just throw them on the side." It was a lot of money for cards. I hadn't spent that amount of money yet, and then all of a sudden, like 2 months later, those cards went up to like $1,000 and $2,000. Like, oh, this is pretty cool, and I sold them off. And then I realized pretty quickly you can make money doing it.
Yeah, then you're hooked. So talk to me about Bowman Chrome. Like I don't know what it is, but if there is, I like to say with this show, we like to steer clear of envy. But man, I don't know how you do it, but you buy product and you rip. And I've seen a few of your rips. You just get a bunch of pictures too. I've seen it. I know it happens. I know the picture happens, but you pull some fire, man. You were able to pull, and you're first to market. Talk to me about how does that work? I mean, how do you do that?
I'm a huge Bowman Chrome fan. When I got into sports, it was pretty quickly that I realized that baseball has a really big collector base. Prospects, they don't allow prospects to fail as quickly as we do a rookie in NFL or in the NBA. So there's multiple buying and selling windows for prospects. You have obviously the inception of the product being released, And then from there, you have multiple layers. I mean, the player may perform well or not up to expectations, and his value may come down. There's a buying window for someone that may want a prospect. You got to remember, these are 17, 18-year-old kids in some cases that are coming over to the US for the first time, and they have to get adjusted. So a lot of people love the prospect. It is more of a gamble for sure. However, it does have a big payoff. For me, I personally don't like gambling. I know I've always said that in all of my podcast interviews or into anyone that I speak to. So I do like to rip. I do like to sell. I do like to grade. I do like to sell. And ultimately, hopefully the person that buys from me is buying a prospect that they're like, man, I can't believe this guy sold it to me for so cheap. And that person blows up like Volpe. I was chasing Dominguez to grade and sell and had all this Volpe. And I was like, this guy's, this guy's terrible.
Who's Volpe? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I was giving them to Break and Wax for like free. It's
like, thanks, bro.
Yeah. He's taking all these cards. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. And little did I know, he ended up being a stud.
Did you give him any color, or you just give him base ones?
Dude, honestly, I had so much because I was doing case breaks. I'm a big pick your team case break person. I just think your value goes really far in those. Whereas you buy one box, you may get nothing. At least I can own that team with any hits that come out of it in a full case.
There you go. And how do you know what? I mean, you obviously do your homework to know what team to pick. But aren't those teams, aren't those teams more difficult to get when know? Like, let's pretend the Brewers for this prospect this year. I don't even know his name. I'm a little behind it.
Curio,
yeah, very. I mean, it's got to be hard to get the Brewers, right?
Dude, you just gotta be quick. when people post it on Instagram, you gotta pick the team quick.
Like that. You just gotta jump on it.
What I do is I stick with 3-4 breakers for Bowman, and I don't really go elsewhere.
And you've got a relationship established with them, so they obviously it's first come first serve, right?
Yeah, it is. It always is. I mean, there's been times I've struck out, but for me, I'd rather support the people that I've been with on this journey for the past 3 or 4 years. That to me is worth more. And I respect they don't just give me the team. That just doesn't happen. And I think everyone should have a fair shot. So I do appreciate that from them too.
That's cool. So that's your main avenue is through the breaks and picking a team. It's not through buying retail. It's not through buying hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I do rip personals. Like I get a little zealous and ripped a couple of cases on Jaspys. That's when I hit that gold Churio, so it paid out, which I already sold. But that was
no. You got yourself a slab stock post, man. That's pretty nice. Like they got that. That's kind of how I started. My first foray into like social media or just content for the hobby was slab stocks digging corners. So I bought a Griffey 89 upper deck, BGS 9. I mean, I talked about it on a couple of these shows, whatever. I was learning about all of that, but this is 19. But that was the first like show. And it was Bowman Chrome, and it was the first. And I dove headlong into that, learning about that because I'm a huge baseball fan. It's like, it's not even close, like my sport. So, I'm a Mariner guy up here in the Pacific Northwest, got about 5 people that collect up here with me. And baseball is just everything. And it's kind of a nice time to be into baseball with the Mariners having a pretty good farm system and the prospects and all that kind of stuff. So that was my entrance is Bowman Chrome. So I always have a heart for that. My problem with Bowman Chrome is, which you don't, you have great hands for it. You'll sell it like that. You're first to market, you sell it. It sounds like you get in there, you get out, and you find those exit opportunities. Me, I hang on because I'm a collector. Too much of a collector with the mindset of a collector going into it, I want to keep this guy. I want to hang on to Wander. I'm going to hang on to these guys because I feel like they're going to become something, and I want to be first in on that guy. I want to have that low entry point and have that first Bowman Chrome of that guy. Then I don't sell, and then I lose money. That's why I suck at that. So,
well, I mean, to be fair, like I said earlier, there's those buying windows, right? Julio was going for money, and then his prices came down. And then he went up, and his prices came down, and went up. So there's been a roller coaster for his pricing, or I think you could sell and end up buying again.
Right. Well, for Julio, I'm fine. I've kept him. I got him at 500 for his first Bowman Chrome Auto PSA 10. I got that, in 2020 because it's Julio. I already kind of knew about him, and I was going to hang on to him anyhow. And picked up his logo Fractor 9.5 just because I wanted to get something. I wanted to get something that I can hang on to for a long time. But it's the other guys. It's like Marco Luciano. Like I bought his car like 3 different times. then I sold it 3 different times. And I haven't sold it ever for a profit. So I kind of just keep changing my mind. I think that's my problem. I'm probably helping the market along by buying and selling, and someone's getting some room to make some money and whatever. Anyway, so that's my story on Bowman Chrome. But you have a different formula, and it works for you. I think it's great to see someone that understands how to work within that market. It's not manipulation at all. I think it's just behaving in a way that you understand where the exits are. You understand when it's important to be on market and how to go about getting these cards without putting yourself in a precarious situation financially doing so. I think some people might be doing that. That's what you worry about with that prospecting.
Yeah, I mean, there's market trends, and for the most part, the market trends have always stayed constant and consistent. While the overall hobby, items are down, and there's some losses going on these big auction houses, new products still sells well within the first 2 or 3 weeks among release, and then some. If you're getting the rare stuff, people are usually taking that and putting it away for prospecting. Like, you don't see many of the big autos shopped around frequently. From Bowman first, the biggest mistake was the Torkelson Red, and the guy paid 116 for it and then sold it recently for 19 grand. I mean, that's not a card that you only hold for 6 months. That's a card you hold to see if he becomes an MVP caliber player, because that's what you paid for. You paid for that. You might as well wait to see what happens. I think people are just exiting at the wrong time right now, and it makes it look a little bit worse than it should be.
So yeah, there's somebody has it Shine? I think Shine has that Wander Superfractor. Does he have the 101?
Yes.
That he's like, I'm not selling that for a while. It's okay. Yeah. Kids can always be in a video, bro.
Little cameo here.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I got, if they weren't all at daycare right now, I'd have them all huddled around me. They love the microphone. They get excited about that and like to sing into it, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Baby.
Yeah, I think it's important to know the card you have and what you're going to hold. So let me ask this question: since we're talking about your PC, have you held on to anything? Do you have anything that you're prospecting on that you intend to hold on to for a while?
I know this is going to sound crazy. Besides the most recent Bowman that I have that I'm getting stuff in and grading, I don't own any sports cards at the moment.
Okay.
I own
okay.
I own maybe 7 Deshaun Watson cards. Just arrival window. That's it.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So you kind of exist in the space, but you're kind of in, you're kind of out. Now, do you have an anticipation of owning something in the future? What's your thought?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm buying Bowman right now, right? So I'm in the space. It just, for me, it's about market trends, where I try to fit in, and I like so much. So for me, I don't have to be solely in sports. I don't have to solely be in TCG or comic books or toys or anything else. I can coexist among everything. I just have more of a passion for the TCG stuff, for the comic books, for the toys. I mean, that's really what I loved as a kid. It's what I love now. It hasn't changed. I still, watch the anime. I still read the mangas. So for me, that's where I prefer. I obviously love sports. I watch sports. I'm a very avid sports person. But I have more, it's easier for me to hold something in TCG long term than it is for sports cards, because I have more of a connection to the TCG stuff than I would for Ben Simmons, who ended up, being a disaster.
Right. So you went in on, okay. Interesting. Is it fair to say does that have something to, does any of it in your heart of hearts have anything to do with your concern for the longevity, the stability of the market for cards?
Nope. I've just never been a gambler. I've never held on to cards for players' performance. I've just never done it. I buy, towards the end of season, off season, and sell preseason. Always. That's just always been my formula for the past 5 years. It's always worked. Do I lose out on bigger profits? Sure. Do I care? No. Do I lose? No. So, that's kind of where I'm at. If I sell something for 2x and that next person can sell for 4x, I'm happy for that person. I'm not upset about that at all. I'm not greedy. I made my money, and I like to take it on and move elsewhere.
So you wouldn't want to hold like a Mantle or a Ruth or some iconic card that's not so much about selling or buying, and it's more about just holding something. That wouldn't intrigue you at all. That
See,
wouldn't
that doesn't get me going. If you were to tell me, hey, if I had Batman 1 or Superman 1, would you hold them? Like, yeah.
Okay. So let's walk into that. Let's walk into that, because that's obviously what you love, and I want to talk about that. Cards are great, but comics. I'm not a savant. I have a buddy of mine, actually the bass player in my band that I've been playing music with for over 20 years. He and I both kind of ventured into this hobby space at the same time in 19. He started buying comics, I started buying cards, and we go back and forth sharing stuff. He shows me all these different comics. He talks about the different the reprints or the print. You're going to tell me all these things. It's going to spark back to me. But it's been around longer. Not longer. I think it's been around the same amount of time, but I feel like it's sturdier. I feel like the comic book market is stronger. It's more mature.
I've been saying this for years. I've been telling people that if you want to park money, you're safer parking it in comic books.
Yeah, store of value conversation, right? Store of value. Because we talk about cars, people like to think, okay, investments, stocks. They're not stocks. They're not investments. They're just not. They don't pay a dividend. It's just that's not what they are. But comic books, but we talk about cards or comics, it's about the store of value. And I do believe that comics are a better store of value. I just don't own any. I'm a huge Spider-Man guy, but I just feel like the barrier to entry sometimes is a little steep. He's spent a ton of money. He's got them all hanging on his walls, the ones he really likes. But he's got some that he doesn't, don't see the light of day either. Talk to me about comic books. Tell me about your story with comics, how you got into it. I know you got TCG, but let's start with comics. What's give me an entry point for comics for you.
So about 2.5, probably about 3 years ago, right before COVID, I was like, was into sports cars, into TCG space. And I was like, I don't really want to buy action figures. I have a bunch already. I had this whole Marvel Legends sealed collection that's just, PC thing stashed away. What can I do to parallel with that? I wasn't a firm believer back then in the PMGs and all that stuff, just because to me, like, it's not the true essence of what Marvel or DC is. Those are comic books. Those are the rookie cards, are the comic books. I don't want to hear someone say, "Oh, it's his first red PMG or his first, first card." I don't care. That's not Spider-Man is not supposed to be in a card. He's supposed to be in a comic book.
Correct.
So for me, I went the comic book route. Granted, if I would have done the PMGs back then, I would have made a lot more money.
And you would have sold it at the right time too, right?
Yeah, granted, and now they're flat, but the comic books are, right? The comic books have stayed a lot more steady now than then. So I started buying a lot of Spider-Man. Like you had referenced, I'm a big Spider-Man guy, so I was going after all the key books. Key books are first appearances. Key books are iconic covers. So for Golden Age, talking DC, you're talking the older late 30s, early 40s. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first appearance, because some of those are millions and millions of dollars. That can be on iconic covers. In some of the artwork, the artists matter, right? So for different books, you'll have different artists, and certain artists like Ditko for Spider-Man does really well. He's who you want to go to invest in. So I was buying Spider-Man. I got Amazing Spider-Man 1. Which crazy story with that is I had paid, I want to say it was a 6.0 or 5.5. I can't remember what it was. It was a high grade for Amazing Spider-Man 1. Amazing Spider-Man 1 is his first book of his own series. So it's his second appearance. His origin story was told. Amazing Fantasy 15 is his first appearance. So you have first appearance, you have his first solo book, his origin story, which is his second appearance, which had Fantastic Four on the cover. He's on the building webbed out. I paid, I want to say 16 grand for that book off of eBay. Book comes in the mail, open it, there's no book. Completely empty box. I'm freaking out. I'm calling, I'm texting the person in DM, like, there's no book in here. Like, I took a video of me opening it. There's no book. He's like, oh, well, you could have done that yourself. You could have opened it, taken it out, retaped it, and then filmed it. And I'm like, I'm not a liar. Like, I've never stolen in my life. I have dude, there's no book in here. All there is bubble wrap. That's it. And the weight's completely off. So we go back and forth. I'm having to go through eBay saying that it was delivered. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm sitting, I just spent 16 grand on this book. And now
For a
here I am
cardboard box.
for a
Yeah.
cardboard box. And now I'm sitting back stressed out. It was a Friday night. We're sitting here with my wife. We had a glass of wine. I'm like, oh my God, I need the whole bottle. You know, I'm like, I'm just besides myself. I've never been scanned before. And I sit back and I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to go the Amex route. And that's why I pay for everything on my Amex, you know, in case of events like this. That's a tough pill to swallow. So the next day I wake up and I'm on social media and I'm searching Amazing Spider-Man 1 hashtags, ASM1 hashtags. And sure enough, I find the book, same serial. It's my book all the way in California, never even left the city, being resold on a comic book middleman's Instagram.
No way.
Yeah, dude, it was
No way.
a wild story, man. So I got a couple buddies involved. Someone that's in Utah is you know, friend over in Cali is a DA, and I was like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Like, you need to send that book to me. You stole it, blah blah. I'll prosecute you at $16,000 mail fraud, yada yada yada. And I ended up getting the book sent to me. But yeah, that was anyway. So that was my.
What? No. You can't just move on. What did he say to you? Like, how is that?
It was so bizarre. So I'm calling this guy, and he's, you know, like, oh well, I got this book off of someone for $5,000. I'm like, well, you're into comic books, you clearly know that's not a $5,000 book, dude. And in long story short, I think the person that sold it never put it in and gave it to this person to try to sell it again and double dip. I think it was a whole like weird situation going on, because the person was FaceTiming me with this individual, like, oh, this is the person that I bought it from. Hey, tell them you're sorry. It was really bizarre. I was like, listen, I don't care about any of this. I just want my book. You know, I don't even want, I want the book. I don't care about the money. I want the book. I want the book. I've gone through this trouble now. Send me my book. So I ended up getting the book, and it was such a disaster. It was the first and only time, knock on wood, that I've been scammed, and I did the detective work to find it.
Wow.
And then I sold the book for 28 grand, like 2 months later. So.
and then you pull a bro name and you just sell it and you profit and you put money in your pocket. Excuse me. Wow. So in that, and so does that happen a lot in the space?
You know, it's never happened to me. So if it doesn't happen to you, you think it never happens.
Correct.
Right. That's your take on it. But you've heard all these stories from people, and you just heard mine now. And now you're like, oh man, maybe it might happen to me. You know, it sucked. It was terrible. The feel that way was a gutless feeling. You know, you're like, your heart was just ripped out. I was excited for this book. And the reason why I sold it was because the market just went crazy. So for me, like, I had a genuine interest in wanting that comic book, but I also am not going to avoid a spike in market trend. I've done this long enough to know that people will run things up. Not me. I mean, I only had one copy, but someone may have 10, 15, 20 copies, and then they manipulate it. Like you said earlier, that's a selling window. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll sell my book. I didn't really want to. I kind of want to hold it on. Like, I had, you know, pictures with my kids holding up with their Spider-Gwen outfits and stuff. And
yeah.
I guess I'm selling the book, because I'm not dumb. I'm not going to want to lose money on something. I think that book is probably around the same price I paid for it now. So it has had a huge drop, maybe a little bit more, maybe 18 grand, 19 grand, but it's still not that 28 grand.
Right. So that started it for you, it sounds like. And so where did you learn about first editions, first appearances? And there's something else about the book that's like important, that they sold it either in a gas station or a store, or it's sold it. Isn't there a variation on the print? My buddy was always telling me about that. That was important.
Let me find. I got some books here. So I'll show you some books. I know you're talking about highlighting collections, but I have some stuff.
No. This is your collection, and I want to talk about comics because no one talks about comics enough, in my opinion. No one talks about them. So
I'm real bullish on Miles Morales. Let's see if we can get here.
Yeah.
So this is Miles Morales's origin story, his second appearance. This is basically Miles Morales's Amazing Spider-Man 1. Okay, it's called Ultimate Spider-Man 1. This book is nothing crazy. It's like $800 or so. It was like $1,200 around peak, but he's got a movie coming out, an animated movie, which is fantastic. If you haven't seen the first one, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
really, I know you say anime, you think it's kiddie. It's not. It's a really good movie. So this here is his first origin story, and let's find this one here. I'll have the barcode for you. This one here is the variant. So the modern comics run with variants. It's released the same day as the other book is. You had to order, the hobby shop had to order 15 copies of that other book to receive one of these.
To perceive, okay.
Okay, so you'll see
Okay.
the ratio 1 to 15. That's what that means for comic books.
Okay.
Down here, you'll see the barcode. That barcode lets you know, for this instance, it was only a hobby release, right? But if this barcode was present on a different book, you would know that that was a newsstand release, right?
Okay, newsstand. All right, got it. Yeah, there was a distinction there, and I wanted to explore it and understand it because, like anything, you want to learn the space. You kind of have to go through this process. Like, so how did you learn all that?
Oh, dude, you just gotta dive in. You go on the message boards. You go on. I'm a
Okay.
forum guy.
Forums.
Yeah,
Good.
I was big into Jordans and Nikes as a kid. Still, someone am. You see a pair of Jordans behind me. OG
Yeah.
Chicago. So for me, I was going on forums and researching as much as possible. When I got the cards, what I do, I went straight to Blowout. I was on Blowout.
Blowout. Yeah, Blowout's the first place I went to. Yeah.
So it helps. It's a whole. You don't have to look like a noob, right? You can you can take in all the information at home in your pajamas and become educated within.
Right. I mean, it takes time. I mean, you sit there and parse through, pages, and you can see the bickering, the back and the forth. You're trying to ignore it. Get to the point. I'm constantly, when I look about buying a card, I'm always typing in the name of the card and right after it, Blowout. And then I'll go on Find Forum and find them talking about it, get everybody's take on it. I'll ask a few, people some questions about it. Then I'll make a decision on whether I want to purchase it or not. But yeah, I'm at the point now where I've pared it all down, right? I just have about 40 cards and slab cards, and that's it. And I'm just lately, I might be getting into a side PC of Bo Jackson, but I don't know, man.
I'll finish this one here. This is the 1 in 30.
Okay, so 1 in 30. You have to buy 30 to get that one.
Yep. So this is the more rare copy. This here in 9.8, it's about like $300 to $3,500. Nothing crazy, but for me, I think that the buy-in's pretty good on Miles. He's going to end up having a real life action movie at some point. Disney's really pushing him in Spider-Gwen, which is Ghost Spider, as a front, poster child for Spider-Man. My kids love the cartoon. There's a little kiddie show called Spidey and Friends. It's Peter Parker.
Yep.
Miles Morales, and then it's Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, what's his face from Fall Out Boy wrote all the score for it. You can tell it's obvious. Yeah, my kids love that show. Like Grayson, my son, my daughters, they're totally into that. The Spidey, yeah. So those are the characters then on that show that we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
Miles and all that.
They're conditioning. They're lining it up. It's a matter of
time. Totally.
So you're playing futures, right? You're playing prospect on that.
So that's how because that's what my friend was doing. My friend, his name is Adam. He was, he was doing the same thing from like a card perspective, but with the comics going, there is going to be a movie. So I'm going to buy a few of these books. And then when the movie comes out, that's my exit.
So there's a great app if you're interested in learning more about comics. It's called Key Collector. So you can get a subscription to get some better insight info, and that's what they highlight. They show you market trends. They'll tell you what movies and shows are coming out. So that's what I did. I did the same thing, right? I was buying, knowing that a show was coming out, knowing that a movie was coming out, and you were selling 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that show, before that movie, because the hype of the all-time high.
Absolutely.
Before.
And so, but you're holding some of these. I can see you're showing me.
So here's another book that I got. This one is pretty sweet.
Wow, that's old.
Yep, that's Batman issue number 4. So that's his 4th book. It released in winter of 1940. It's the 4th appearance of the Joker. It's the first mention of Gotham City.
See all these little key things, right? The first mention of Gotham City, 4th Joker, 4th book, 10th book.
It's Batman issue number 4. He's been in more appearances, Batman, because he was in Detective Comics, but this is his 4th book. What people regard in the Golden Age era are 10-cent comics, right? So you always hear people say, "Oh, it's a 10-cent comic," because that's what it was in the Golden Age era in the late 30s, early 40s. There were 10 cents. Another big moniker to mention here is off-white to white pages.
Okay.
which is huge for a golden age book. So typically these books are cream, they're brittle, they're falling apart, and they have that distinguishing up there. But to have white pages is big on a golden age book. And look how funny, they would never dare to put that on the advertisement in the back of the book.
When I laugh, I cough now. So that's awesome. I wonder. So off white to white, in even though you can't see the book, you can't open it up to but they will detail that for you, so you know what you have in your hand. You
Correct.
know what you bought. You know what it
You'll
is.
tell from the front cover. So if it's cream, it's more of a yellowish hue to it. If it's off white, it will have a slight hue with some good color pop. If it's off white to white, it means that there's some vibrant colors along with it. What's nice about the comic books is that you can look up the serial number and you be able to see the grader's notes. The graders will have detailed notes about that particular book.
And how is this tracked? You get pop reports and cards, so kind of wrap me into that.
Same thing. So
How does
CGC has a pop report that you can pull up.
And does it distinguish between the off white distinguish? Is that all?
That it does not. So not every 3.5 in the pop report is the same.
Equal. Okay.
Exactly. And that's where it comes in. You talk about Mansell's right earlier. Same era, kind of a little older here. What is or better off? Babe Ruth. What's the bigger draw? It's eye appeal, right? Someone may pay more for a 7 than an 8 because of eye appeal. And comics are the same way. So imagine if Mickey Mantle's cards and these vintage cards had off white to white, cream to white. I think that would be fantastic. I think they should, because it allows you to know eye appeal without even having to like sit there with a microscope and figure out what's better looking or not. It lets me know off the bat. White pages, it's a white card, perfect. It's pristine.
More mature hobby.
Yep.
More mature space.
Yep.
You have the distinction between it's illustrated for you. There's no less. The argument goes away. You eliminate the friction, right? You take that conspiracy, that conversation away, and now it's cleaner for you as a hobbyist to come in there and buy the card.
You take away all of these like subgroup companies coming out. I'm gonna put my diamond on this.
Diamond, right?
I'm gonna do this, and is it PWCC? This is a fine print, and this, that, and the other. Like, CGC eliminates all that. And I wish if PSA BGS did that, I think that'd be fantastic.
It would be. It would be. No, I agree. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm like you're dangerous to me right now, because I'm a collector. I got that, and I've spent way too much money the last few years, and I've sold a lot of stuff too. But then there's the tax piece of it that's kind of really crappy when you own a rental and you got your salary, and then you got that little thing going on where you really just use that money to fund capital for because you keep recycling your collection. Yeah, but then
taking losses. Just keep buying a red Torkelson for 120.
Yeah, right. That only works for 2 years. You can't. I'm up now. I'm against it now because I only did it for a couple of years, but it's my 3rd year. I can't have a loss now. I want to stay off the radar. So anyway. Yeah, it is. The space is really interesting because it does seem more mature, and it has this like element of. So yeah, show me more books. Like, what you hold? Why do you hold on to what you hold on to?
For first of all, the Batman's just rare. The Batman total population graded is under 100. That's it. That is all that's graded is under 100.
Wow.
When you start going through the grades, 3.5 is pretty good. It's top 50% graded. So there's only 50 books better in that book than that book there. And that's why the golden age stuff, you'll see like 0.5s and 2s could sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars just because there's not many of them. We're talking at a time, and this is the other part of it that I love so much, is the Americana to golden age books in particular, because you're talking about late 30s, early 40s, which we had war going on. So while the fathers were off at war and these kids were at home with these comic books and they're reading these books, who's there not to tell them to hold on to something? And typically in the household, and when I grew up, my mom threw away everything. So, you have a kid who's reading these comic books, may have drawn on them, father figure not there to say, hey, we should collect this and you should do this. It was a weird time. And I think that's why these books are so scarce and you don't see many of them. And if you do see them, guess what? They're stashed away in boxes in the attic in an old home that's been passed around 3 different generations.
And so what's considered low pop?
Yep. So you have golden age, which are going to be your 30s, 40s books, 50s, I think early 50s. Then you have bronze, which are like late 60s, mid 60s to 70s, early 80s. You have silver. No, you have silver, then bronze, then modern age. So there's a whole tier. If you go to Key Collector, it actually
Mhm.
highlights exactly what the years are,
Exactly. Okay.
and where they fall in at. But the bronze era, that's after silver. It's a little murky. The print runs start to get a little bit higher. Silver Age is a really good age. Again, that was a time at war, right? In your 60s, you have another issue going on. So it's not like there's a ton of books out there. And then obviously the Golden Age, to me, I think Golden Age will always be the pinnacle of comic books. Like, yes, of course, Silver Age was the birth of Marvel. So Silver Age is when Marvel came about. Stan Lee was writing Americana in little tabloids that was given out to U.S. soldiers while in World War II, and that's where Captain America was birthed. And he was propaganda, to be killing Hitler and Nazis, and to keep our soldiers motivated. And he was our sense of strength to the young guys that were overseas fighting this war on behalf of us. And that's where it became Marvel. And then if you notice, he had some books, and I want to say in the Golden Age era, Captain America did, and then later on, that's when Marvel came back around when he got published because Stan Lee was trying to go out and try to find someone to publish his stuff. He ended up going with what was his first book? I'm trying to think here. I want to say it was Fantastic Four. So Fantastic Four was the first breakout Marvel series.
Okay.
Reason why is because it was relatable. Uh, he was highly regarded for bringing personal connection from reader to book. Whereas before, there was really not much of a connection. It was just more of a storytelling with DC, what they were doing back in the Golden Age. So he had this connection with Fantastic Four, and people just took it by storm. And then he just came out with hit after hit after hit, and he did not stop. It was relentless. He had Fantastic Four issue number 1, 2. They weren't in their uniform, and then issue I think number 3 or 4, they end up coming out in their uniform, and they came out with the jet. And then issue number 5 was first appearance of Doctor Doom, which is just a menacing cover. It was just such an iconic book. And then from there, it started having Neymar was a crossover. They had Neymar who came in, and they just kept going and going. It was done so well, the way that he did the whole Marvel landscape. You had Spider-Man was introduced, 62, I think he was, and then you had so many different books at that time. So he was more of a connection from reader to book, more so than DC was.
And so, what books in that series are coveted? The Doctor Doom one you mentioned is
Yeah, Fantastic Four issue number 1's a big book. Obviously, Amazing Fantasy 15 is a big book, which is first appearance of Spider-Man. You've got Amazing Spider-Man 1, which is a big book, which is his first solo cover, which is a crossover from Fantastic Four in that book, which was a great kickoff. You got, I want to say, Hulk issue number 1, obviously his first appearance where he's gray. It's an awesome book. The artwork on that's sick. It's got Bruce Banner in the front and then Hulk in the background popping up. You've got Hulk issue number 181, I think it was, which is Wolverine's first appearance. That was a little bit later in, but that was a huge revival because the X-Men just went crazy. X-Men issue number 1. I mean, you look at that book just looks so old to what their uniforms and suits are now. And then Wolverine really was like the flip switch where X-Men got really cool. And they had a lot of different spin-offs with Gambit and other things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I love Marvel, man. Marvel's great. I think DC is undervalued though, just because it's supply demand. There's just not enough supply out there. Some books in DC you'll never see. It just doesn't come up for sale because there's only pop 60 total. You just never see it. I like that type of stuff. To me, the chase is more fun than actually getting the
right.
piece.
What's that say though about DC if no one's willing to let go?
I think
Right.
DC. Yeah, but comic books are more collector based, right? You and I kind of had that brush over a little bit earlier. I think more people want to collect books. Cards are okay. I buy a sports card. How long do I have to hold this to flip it and make money? That's like people go in with the intention of that, and comic books, that's not the case. Comic books, people buy these and stash them away and have millions of dollars of comic books, and they don't really ever tell anyone they have it.
Right. You're not okay. Look, let's like dovetail that conversation into, okay, so what's the hobby like? What's that space like? How is it compared to cards? Do you have like a card porn for comics out there, or a sports card radio site for comics?
Card porn is unique. Let you know, card porn, it can be on their own mantle in their own world and be popular in their own space.
I could leave it alone.
That for me, I don't follow them. I don't really give them the time of day. I say them because I'm sure it's probably a group of people. So I don't really give two craps about them. And in Star Wars too. I mean, are you a Star Wars guy?
I'm not a Star Wars guy. I've just never. I tried really hard this last year just to do it again. I tried. I couldn't. It's just. I couldn't. I just had a hard time.
You didn't show this, then I guess that would be. It doesn't really matter to you.
That's the Malderonian, right? The Malder.
This is Boba Fett.
So is that the one that has the baby Yoda and he's like traveling around with him all the time when he's a baby
That's
Yoda?
Mandalorian. So Boba Fett is. So Mandalorian is a newer concept. That's what they just put on the TV show. This here is an original Star Wars 1979 Kenner Star Wars, which is a loose figure with the light green chest. And you'll see like they have like different grades right there. It's a grade.
So cool. That is so cool. The toy thing is dangerous too, because I am huge into. So have you watched? There's a show on History Channel, like the Toys That Made America, or it's following that concept with like the history of like food of America, the Titans of America. Now they have the Toys of America, and they walk through that. They went to Mattel Star Wars and went, "Hey, we want you to make a toy for this movie." And Mattel was like, "Get out of my face. We don't have time for that crap. No one. Movies don't sell toys." And so Kenner, this little upstart in like I think Wisconsin or something, Minnesota or something like that, we're like, "Yeah, we'll do it." And they created like the model that, what is it, 4.5 inch or something. That was the set model now for those figurines. Because before the GI Joes were like, they're huge, they're massive, but then they created these little characters. And they became, it was like their thing. And they kept going, well, the next movie that came out, they kept writing it and writing it. Unfortunately, once the movie was done, then they were pretty much done. But you got to think those first characters that they created. Like there's a big, I encourage you to go watch it because I think you get a kick out of it.
I would love to watch that.
Yeah, it's just about the toys that made America. You can find it at History Channel. And they talk about that. But it got me thinking as a collector, I'm like, gosh, like what are those things worth? Those original.
Well, dude, so this is original here, but this is a mass-produced copy. You would want it I mean, that there's probably like $400 or $500. You would want one that's carded. When they call in action figures, how's the card? It's the back stock that they're referring to.
Okay.
So there's all these different. I know too much about too much. It's exhausting.
I think these types of conversations about like figurines, video games, books, comic books, cards, it's all the same in a way. It's all the same. We collect stuff. We collect things that matter. Okay, see, I'm in Seattle, so like, 10 minutes north of me is Everett. Funko is right there. I got the headquarters. Boom. I'm right there. I can go in there anytime I want. It's about the only thing I have at my disposal here, because otherwise you guys are all on the East Coast. LA's down there. But I've got Funko, man. So talk to me about Funko a little bit. Like we're into figurines.
So you just hit a huge sore subject in my life.
Okay. Well, do explain.
So I have this innate ability of always being early to everything, and also being the first one out on everything.
You got out of that.
So I was collecting Funko Pops when they first came out in high quantity. I hopped in the forums. I was a huge forum guy and was connecting with people at all the different Comic Cons. It's when Gemini website would drop their San Diego Comic Con releases, and they would sit for days, and then they would get discounted, right? Because no one was buying them. I collected specifically everything DC and everything Marvel for the first year and a half. Everything, clamshells, you name it. I had everything, even down to some prototypes that were sold on Gemini, because Gemini would have some of the prototypes there. Because you can go to, I think that one I can't remember what it was called. Was it Wacky Funko Day or whatever. They would do it once a year. You would go and you'd get like this giant like goodie bag of stuff, and that's where a lot of the prototypes were given out at these events. And bro, we were talking about back then, there was like 40, 50 people who go to these. Now you have to have a valet line to be able to even get in. So here I was at all these things, and this is when I was in college, and I had them displayed in my apartment at the time in the boxes. And my wife's like, my girlfriend at the time was like, "What are you doing? Like, we have people coming over for wine, and we're drinking. We're trying to be adults here, and you're still a child. Like, what the hell is going on?" And I'm like, "All right, well, so then we moved to a different apartment, and I'm like, well, I guess they better sell all of these, right?
You saw this, you know what?
A little bit. And listen, I was such a nerd with this that had everything. There was a Funko site where you could enter in all data entry of what you had and how many quantities of, and it would tell you data. It would tell you what the current value is of those items.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. The worst thing I ever did was actually create an account. So I sold all these Funkos. Let's say if I was in $7,000, just hypothetically speaking, on these Funkos over time, I maybe sold them for 10 grand. Okay.
Okay.
So I made $2,000. Like, well, I made $2,000, whatever. And moving in this apartment, a year and a half goes by, and I'm at the mall, and I'm like, holy shit, Funko Pops are at Hot Topic. I'm like, cool. Like now they're becoming mainstream, and I just start to see there's this huge boom. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
They're everywhere.
Then I log in on that site, and I should have never had. And my Funko collection was worth $145,000. And that was at peak. That was at like super peak. It was sickening. Yeah, it was sickening.
Bro.
So there's my Funko story. They don't share often with anybody because I'm so sour. Yeah.
Man, I feel like I need to go buy you a pop or something, boss.
No,
like I need to.
I don't own any.
You don't want them. You can't have them in your house now.
I'm literally scarred for life.
You can't even look at one. Like I was like, I think it was a while back. Oh man. I was like, I'll take you guys through a tour. I'll tell like, bro's like, no, man, I'm off IG for a minute. Well,
dude, I get them.
Killing me.
I'll get them as random presents, over the years, and I'll just like re-gift them. Like I don't want it
as fast as you possibly can. You cannot have a pop
out of my face.
That's not funny. I'm not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at an expense of you. I just think it's crazy to me because when you ask me, okay, first thing that comes to your mind when you think about bro, I would say dude knows how to get in and get out of a market. He's smart. He doesn't hang on. He takes money that's on the table. He's really smart about that. And then you give me this story about Funko Pops. I just don't understand. It's weird to me that I remember when they first came out, a guy down the street, lives down the street from me. He has this wall full of them. And this is about like probably around the time you were buying them. And I remember looking at all. He had I can't get a Ken Griffey Jr. one to save my life. I can get a lot of other ones. But he had a wall of them, and I was like, "What the hell? What are those? Why do you have those? Like, are they toys, bro? Like, what's going on, man? Like, or how are you doing?" And he's kind of like, "No, this is really, really cool. Let me check this one out. This one's a gold one. This one's a silver one." I'm like, "Dude, they're like toys, boy. Like, let's go grab a beer. Come on. What are we looking at toys for?" I didn't get it, right? And now I've got one of my we got a hutch in the room across over here, and I've got a big old stack of them, like Jordan, just Larry Bird, Patrick Mahomes, and some of that kind of stuff. Notorious B.I.G. Tupac, I just can't believe how big of a deal. My kids love them. They don't want them in the boxes, obviously. They rip those things out and they play with it. But my wife Megan thinks I'm an idiot for like, why do you keep them in the box? What's the point of that? I was like, well, they're more valuable. I was like, are you really going to sell those? Like, why does it matter? Like, why do you? Like, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. It's an Everett company. It's kind of a cool deal that they're such a big deal. And they got the big figurine. The kids love it. They go in there. It's cool. There's no kids in there. Just a bunch of grown men. Not women, grown men.
Well, it started off as just bobbleheads, is how it started off. And they were like the bobblehead company for years. And then all of a sudden, they showcase the Funko Pops, and it just went wild. It was the first Funko Pop DC one collaboration was in a clamshell. It was in like a clear plastic shell with a hook. And it was at San Diego Comic-Con. They just had it up on shelves, and they were glow in the dark. It was Green Lantern. It was the classic Batman in the blue and sky blue and yellow outfit. It was Batwoman, and then a couple other ones, and they just weren't crazy, bro. Like those I was paying $400. No, I was paying less. I want to say I was paying like $200 or $300 for those, maybe 400 a couple as it went on, and those ended up being worth like 15 grand a piece.
We don't have to keep torturing you, my friend.
Yeah,
I'm not going to keep torturing you.
that's all right.
So we'll move on from Funko Pops. That's insane. I didn't know there's Funko Pops out there worth that much. I'm not terribly surprised. I know there's a big market for them. They just had to move like warehousing down to Phoenix because they just don't have the space here to do it. It's too expensive up here anyway. But okay, talk to me. All right, let's go. We're really into this deep because we could probably geek out on a lot of these things for a while. Personally, I like it because I'm learning, and you're definitely teaching people they're going to watch this. So you have to take off. You got to grab only a handful of things. Obviously, your kids and your wife, priority. The important things, dog, cat, whatever, animal. You got to grab a handful of stuff, 10, 15 things, whatever you can, fit in your hands. What are you taking?
So I'm taking my coveted Dragon Ball collection at the moment, because that's what I have put a lot of money into, and that's what I hold near and dear to my heart at the moment. So I'll show you a couple stuff here. Actually, I'm gonna go through the ringer, right? So these here are gold cards. I know it's really hard to see.
You can see them though. Yeah, I can see them.
So these here were awarded to first, second, third place winners at the national tournament. Are you familiar with Pokemon a little bit?
A little bit. My daughter collects them.
You've seen the Illustrator card that everyone goes crazy about.
Yeah.
So this would be like the equivalent of the handout of tournaments. You have to win all year round to get invited to national tournament to be able to fight your way playing the card game to get to this point, to get to these. So these are prize cards, right? They only make in this year, 2019, it was 5 copies each in English. I don't have the third one because he's asking an astronomical amount. I'm not paying that yet because out of spite, because they used to be really cheap back in the day when I was collecting them, and I just circled back on them about 6 months ago.
Okay.
So I'm missing one from the 3-card set. These are 2019, and then 2020 comes around and it's COVID, right? So they can't do any in-person tournaments. They end up doing online tournaments. So this basically was in place of the gold card. It says champion on there. This was awarded to the champion that was on the online regional series. So this would be like in place of the gold one from there. I know I'm going through a lot, but
no, but these are things that people win, and then they grade them and then they sell them, and you can own what they want.
I buy them. I'd like to buy them from winners, and I'll get to 2022 and kind of get you through what I'm doing with that at the moment. 2021 is here. I got 2 copies of Vegeta. I've got this Goku and then this Shenron. These were all purchased graded already just because I was late to it, right? Someone else had purchased them from a winner and then graded it. That's 2021.
Why do the winners, sorry to interrupt you, but why do the winners sell them?
So that's their money. So a lot of these guys that play the game, they're playing obviously to make money off the game. They don't really necessarily care about these cards. They want to build decks. They want to be able to afford to go to the next show, to be able to next event. So these prize cards are won with the understanding that you're probably going to sell them, because imagine this, like you're playing this circuit as fun every once in a while. You go to nationals, you win, you sell one of these cards for $15,000. That's not necessarily a terrible payday for someone who's just playing a game recreationally, as that's their hobby, right? So you wouldn't mind if you're playing your hobby and getting paid 15 grand just to show up and win a tournament. And that $15,000 card raw graded ends up being $25,000, $30,000.
Why is it so valuable? Because of the rarity of it?
Yep, the rarity of it. Yeah, there's only 5 of each copy made.
And if you collect these cards, do you play the game? Is that what do you play the game? Just collect the cards?
I'm a huge anime fan. Dragon Ball is my favorite anime of all time. I read the manga. So for me, it's collecting situation going on. It actually is one of the biggest collecting bases for anime. Dragon Ball is. So like these here are top 16. These were handed out to people that finished top 16. You'll see there's I think a stamp on this one here. clear and the paper one. These
Black
are both
labels.
black labels. So that goes with my 2021 set. And then 2021 was the first time that they did a world tournament. So Pokemon has had a world tournament. If you make it to a point where your TCG, which is table card game, has a world tournament stage, you've made it, right? Like your game now solidified. People can win the nationals, can win regional to get the national. And then what they did was they took the first place winner from each national around the world and brought them to the world stage. So it's extremely hard to get into because you obviously have to win first place to get invited. The first place world champion got a exclusive gold card. My buddy owns that one, and it's valued close to about $200,000. And that's a huge card. It's the biggest card in Dragon Ball by far. But those people that did not win, they did get something, and they were world championship stamped cards. I'm not going to show you all of them. It was a 12 card set. When I got back into Dragon Ball really heavy around the national, so back in July I was buying the world championship cards, the world championship stamped cards. Big fan of them just because they only made so many copies of them. That for a fact. And I had unfortunately purchased the biggest card from that set in a black label. And then I got this black label itch, and I was like, I'm going to get the entire 12 card set in black label. And
Talk to me about the space. Like, so comic books, cards, TCG. Are they how would you rank them? Like relevance, how big?
For me on a personal level, or just like how I think on a national level for everyone
Pretend
else?
I'm completely naive to all of it. How would you, if I'm asking you that question, what would you tell me?
I think, when I saw the list of most iconic cards and Charizard wasn't top 5, I thought it was a shame. You could show Charizard, that photo, to one of your kids right now, and they go, "Oh, that's Charizard."
Yeah, my daughter would know that. Yeah.
Yeah, you show a photo of Mickey Mantle, and they're like, "I don't know who the hell it is, Dad. What are you showing me this for?"
Okay.
So for me, I think that there's more relevancy in TCG space longer term because animes keep coming out, mangas keep coming out, and to be frank, anime's been more popular and more acceptable. Like when I watched anime back in the day, yeah, I would watch it, would talk on the football team and stuff like that with my buddies. But it wasn't huge, right? Like you didn't see people wearing anime gear everywhere. If you did, it was like people that were like socially awkward and no one wanted to hang out or talk with them. And now you've got people like Zion getting, Naruto, drawn on his shoes that he's playing basketball in, and all across the leagues are having Goku or Luffy from One Piece. Like it's just all over the place. Now it's a socially acceptable thing where it's not taboo. You watch anime, oh, you read manga, you're a loser. Like that's not the case anymore. And I don't think it ever was the case. I just think that back then, it was a newer thing for people, and it was hard for them to understand because the birth of anime really was like late 70s, early 80s. That's relatively new for something. And then it keep coming out with more episodes and more movies and Dragon Ball movies, and people love it. One Piece just came out with their first TCG in English. That's really big from Bandai, and people are heavily prospecting and investing in that. Like I am a big fan of that. It's one of the most watched animes in the world. So, it's more relatable. Like, I can watch this. I can feel the characters' sense of who they are. Whereas, Metadu was this big pump and dump scheme where people just, oh, you got to buy this. And they were pushed by celebrities. There was nothing back in it. There was no anime. There was no manga. There was no relatability. With TCG geared towards like anime and shows, like there's relatability there. Like you're always going to have a collector base if there's a show. It just is what it is. Like, for instance, you're always going to want to collect Mariners cards. Why? Because you're a Mariners fan. So it doesn't matter if the player sucks or not. You're still going to want to buy it. Doesn't matter if those cards go down to $0. Like right now, if my Dragon Ball collection went to $0, I'd be like, you know what? That sucks. But guess what? They're going. They're going up here and they're getting displayed. And I'm not going to worry about them getting
Not going to worry about them getting sold. What's a mongu? Mongu? Explain that to me.
Yeah, manga. It's the manga, however you want to pronounce it. It's Japanese comic book.
Okay, so it's the comic book that connects to the.
It's the original. It's like the script. So the anime will vary sometimes from the script of the manga or the manga. So it's just, but you can read that before. So usually the manga or manga comes out like a year or two before the anime does. So if you're watching the anime, you're just kind of catching up on, you're seeing it on the big screen.
1, 2, 3. The manga,
It's called manga.
manga.
Yeah.
The book, show. No,
Manga,
this is the
show,
book, show,
card.
then the card. This is the time where the card, it's not a big. You talked about Spider-Man book. That's not the. But this is a time when it's almost like an extension of the book, right?
Yeah.
That starts there,
Well,
originates.
it's because it's a TCG, it's a table card game, right? And like
Got it.
you need the game to have a great level of playability for people to want to play it and be involved in it, and have not only collector base but also a player base where people are showing up to nationals because they got invited. And I think this weekend's the U.S. Nationals. It's not U.S., it's the North American Nationals, so it's Canada and in the U.S. It's being held in Orlando. Thankfully for me, I get to drive over there and try to buy everything that I can in person, which is I'm happy.
It's a dangerous thing, man. It's like,
dude, it sucks. So this is the World Championship stuff.
Okay.
I was able to collect all of them in Black Label. So it's a 12 card set that I was able to collect in Black Label. It's my greatest accomplishment as a collector over my years. This is the big one here. This is Goku and Vegeta's the Apex of Power. This here was a set card. What I mean by that was it was released in a set previous, and they brought this card back for the World Championship stage. And you'll see in the middle there, it has the World Championship stamp, 2021. This card here is big. It's probably a top 5 Dragon Ball card in existence. That was the first card I bought when I got back in. And then I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to be able to do this. And I was networking with people all over the world, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Italy, just trying to buy everything that I could. It was tough because some of these cards are pop 1, and most of them are. And trying to get them out of collectors' hands was very difficult. It was a very hard task. And I was missing one. So there was one card that I didn't have. And I was like, oh my God, I've got 11 of the 12. And it's the worst card of the 12 cards. It's the cheapest. It's the ugliest. No one wants it. And yet no one has a Black Label. There's one BGS 10 gold label. I owned it. And I was like, I'm going to be stuck with the worst blue balls for the rest of my life, not knowing that I could have collected this set and being one of the greatest TCG moments from collectability standpoint. And sure enough, a buddy of mine in Hong Kong DMs me. He goes, are you ready? Are you sitting down? I'm like, what's up, man? He goes, I did it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, I hit that card in the Black Label. I'm like, oh my God, like, all right, whatever you need, it doesn't matter. And luckily he didn't rake me over the coals. It was a fair price. Yeah. So I was able to collect it. But this year, I already have it prepped to grade. This is a Goku gold one from 2022 National Championship.
Those just look so cool.
They're heavy, man.
They just look. They're substantial.
Yeah, you know that they're a good card. So that I'm this weekend, I'm hoping to get the other 2, and then I want to grade them all at once to get sequential serial numbers from Beckett.
Dude, I am so happy to hear that you got your blue balls, and I think we're all gonna sleep better tonight. No, bro got his blue balls.
I do want to note one other card. You mentioned taking off out of the house. This one here is more like a family heirloom deal that I'll give to my kids, and I have a couple sets of them, which is my wife's father who played in the NFL.
Oh, that's awesome, man. You told me you didn't have any sports cards.
Yeah, this doesn't really matter. This doesn't count. You know,
that's a sports card.
So this
now you are officially a collector of sports cards.
So this one I have displayed here. And
that's cool.
That's cool. What I'll be able to pass down to my kids.
Absolutely.
Part of their grandfather.
We'll talk about that for a second, though. I mean, that's a really cool card. That's the sentimental piece is really neat. Sure. He played in the NFL. Like, where did he play college? How did that work?
So he played at the University of South Carolina. Good old country boy. He was born and raised South Carolina. Played at Gamecocks. I think got drafted with the Bills and then ended up with the Jets and then retired and played down here at the Bucks. So he was on a team with Joe Namath, which oddly enough, my bro Namath is not originated from that. However, some of the stories that he's told me definitely gave precedence to why I like Joe Namath so much.
And that's where the bro Namath comes from. Wow, look what we just did there, man.
Yeah.
Look what we just did there. Look
Yeah.
what just
Because
happened.
the whole thing was back in the day, everyone called someone Bro Tana. Oh, what's up, Bro Tana? They had this whole
For
play on
sure.
bros.
For
And I was
sure.
like,
For sure.
well, Joe Namath was way cooler than Joe Montana. So I went with the Bro Namath.
Oh yeah. No, Joe, dude, Broadway Joe.
Yeah, dude,
Dude.
his stories are epic. So we'll be hanging. He's not a very social person until he had a couple drinks. He's a
Yeah.
big man. He's a 6'5". He's probably close to 300 pounds still to this
Yeah.
day. I want to say he just turned. He's near 70 now, and every year he sends me on his birthday him maxing on the bench. And I think this year he hit like 325. I'm like, dude, you're almost 70. You're hitting 325 on the bench. Like this
And
is
this is
awesome.
your father?
Yeah, this is. Yep.
That is so dope. That
So
is so dope. Wow.
he tells me some really rad stories of Joe
Yeah.
Namath, like them at bars, and was it Olivia Newton-John? She was the one on the
Yeah.
Goose. She
Yeah.
was coming over to spring training, not spring training, but preseason, like in their like hotels and stuff like that, looking for Joe Namath, and she was walking up and. My father-in-law was like, "Hey, where are you going?" He was like, "Oh, I'm looking for Joe." It's like, "Oh, Joe's in my place." Like, "No, he's not. Tell me where he's at." It's just, Joe just did whatever he want, man. It was hilarious.
That's crazy stuff, man. This is what a fun episode. I know you eat well, and I know that because of some of the stuff you post, man. You eat well. I want to know, what's your go-to cocktail?
Go-to cocktail. Oh,
First, your go-to cocktail, and tell me your best bourbon.
oh man, I think it
Because I know
kind
you're a
of.
bourbon guy.
Yeah, I am. I think it would go hand in hand. I don't like old fashions much anymore, just because it's a little sweeter for me.
Mhm.
I'm more on a rocks guy. So if I go out to a restaurant, I usually get a double Blanton's on the rocks. If I see something on the menu that definitely gets me going, like some Pappies, I will always order Pappies.
Fine at Pappy's. Yeah.
I'll always order Pappies if I see it on the menu.
You can't find it. It's so hard. If I can't, I've never
There's
had it.
You've never had it?
I can't find it.
So
I've had John Howie Steak in Bellevue over here, where basically everybody who has money lives, and they still don't have. They didn't have Pappies.
So we went to a hotel, I want to say like 4 months ago. It was Don Cesar over in St. Pete. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's like this, it's famous for being this pink hotel. Back in the day, it used to be like a famous hotel where like, Mickey Mantle and all the Yankees would stay at back in the day for spring training down here.
Mm-hmm.
So we go there, we're at this restaurant. I look at the menu, I open it up. I'm like, holy shit, they've got 15-year and 20-year on the menu. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'm like, listen, this is, and it was not badly priced. It was $50 and $80 for a drink. Yeah. And I know people listening are probably like, oh, that's so
probably like, they don't understand. You got to get the context of what Pappy's is. Like, that stuff is not.
It's like a mythical creature that you hear about, you just never see, and to see it in the wild, priced at that price point, I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and order that.
It's like a large, out of focus monster. It's like the Bigfoot, large, out of focus, blurry monster you never see.
Yep.
But we know it exists.
Oh my god, it's good.
What's it? Okay, give me the notes. Like, what does it feel like? What's the mouth feel?
When you get to the more high-end bourbons, you don't have that bite, right? And a lot of people are going to think, oh, well, bourbon, it burns my throat and it hurts. Like, as you get a little bit higher up, you let it sit on the rocks maybe for a solid 2 minutes. It's just so smooth.
You rocked it? Wow. I would neat.
No, I wouldn't rock.
I want to at least try it neat to see what it was like.
I've had it. I had a bottle a couple years ago that was gifted to me from High End Kyler, the guy on Instagram. I was helping him with his subs and doing some stuff like sending him off to get graded because he's just lazy bum. So I was doing it for him. So he gifted me that. It was nice. It was a really great. It was a generous gift, and I ended up getting another bottle after that one. The problem is that it's so smooth and it's so good and it tastes so fantastic that it goes too quick.
And it sneaks up on you too when you have some.
It does. It does. I mean, any high-end liquor that's smooth like that will creep up on you. However, it was too good. You don't want to put it down. It was just it's the taste. It's the aroma too. Like, I do like drink it neat every once in a while, especially if it's my first glass. I'll do neat and then I'll go to rocks. That smell on a neat pour is just fantastic.
Man, you're making me thirsty. It's like, what time is it right now? It's 12:42, and I'm like, what? Like, I can't be touching it, but at least not right now. That's really cool. So we've covered, and we'll have one more question before we wrap. we've talked about blue balls. We talked about Funko. We've talked about bourbon. We've talked about cards, comics. We talked about Bowman. We've talked TCG. All right, we've covered it. This has been a very productive episode. I know it doesn't fit all the boxes, but I don't care about boxes. I don't care about what things fit. I like just getting good value. I like learning stuff. I feel like I learned a little bit today, and I hope people do too. And we can keep talking about it because I just think there needs to be more conversation around comics, TCG, all that stuff because it is fascinating to me. You get $100,000. Been asking everybody this. You get 100 grand. Have an idea what you're gonna do with it. You get 100 grand. No one cares what you do with it. What do you do with that 100 grand? You got to spend it on cards, comics, not paps, not pappies. Cards, comics, TCG. What do you do with it? You combine stuff? Do you sell stuff? What do you do?
I am buying. You got to sell stuff now and combine to the 100K.
What you got 100? You can sell some stuff, put some money to it. What do you do?
If I had 100 grand to splurge in any one particular area, it's going to be TCG prize cards. So it'll be Pokemon World Championship 1 through 3 placers. So that's first, second, third. It would be an Illustrator card. It would be Dragon Ball Gold cards, which is what I've done. I would go in that direction. I think prize cards are severely undervalued. I think they're extremely rare. I think that when the dust settles, next year is going to be rough. I think everyone knows that economically in the U.S. And if you're investing in anything long term, it needs to be stuff that doesn't see the market often, that you don't see in every auction house 5-6 times a month. That's supposed to be a grail or rare. Those are the cards that you should be holding on to. The people that know that there's long-term value, that doesn't want to continue to do a quick flip and devalue the card. So those cards are what I see in the market do not get flipped over and over.
Sounds good, man. Let's do this again sometime. Friends, Bro Namath, thank you for being on this episode. And yeah, I look forward to doing something again soon. Let's talk Bowman Chrome. Let's talk other things. Let's keep talking TCG and comics. Thanks for taking time, man. This has been great.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks, guys.